Alright. Today's meditation is a quote from Yehuda Berg. He's the son of the gentleman who started the Kabbalah Center, and he's now the co-chair of the Kabbalah Center. I do believe that the original sources of all religion should be taught, because with that we will find our similarities, not just our differences. I believe that if Muhammad, Buddha, Jesus, and Moses all got together, they would be the best of friends, because the spiritual basis of all religion is something that builds unity. That was pretty. Thank you, Karen. Okay, so today I'm going to read my sermon. Congratulations, I wrote it down. United We Stand is the title. Good morning and welcome. I hope you found your way to the coffee and tea in the lobby before taking your seats today. I know the title of the sermon is United We Stand, and I'll get to that, but first we need to talk a little bit about hospitality. I know you're thinking to yourself, what does hospitality have to do with standing united? I'll tell you this. If Sodom and Gomorrah had extended traditional hospitality to the angels visiting Lot, the two cities might have survived the wrath of the Hebrew Bible's God. As the story goes, Abraham left the king of Sodom, who offered to cede Abraham's wealth, that's Genesis 14:21, and went to manage his family business raising cattle. Those of you who have read Genesis frontwards and backwards, the story is as old as, well, Abraham. For those of you who haven't read it, Abraham lived in Egypt. Egypt had a drought. It became hard to live there, so he left and took his wife, and he went. It doesn't quite say if Lot is his brother, or his cousin, or his nephew, or his uncle, but Lot is a family relation to Abraham. They traveled to the land of Israel. When they got to the land of Israel, they came across a wide variety of kings. Abraham got on really well with the kings. His wife got a bit better. I'm not saying that there was anything untoward in those interactions. But what happened repeatedly is that Abraham would introduce his wife. The kings would be like, wow, you have a very attractive wife. And Abraham would be like, yeah, we kind of got to go. So when the king of Sodom offered to give Abraham money and wealth to start his new farm, plantation, ranch, whatever you want to call it, Abraham told him no. All of my wealth comes from the generosity of God. I do not want anyone to say that I built my empire on their back. So he went off to do it by himself. He and Lot arrived to the land of the Israelites, but was then occupied by the Canaanites and a couple otherites. And because there were such large groups of people, Abraham's family is not just his family, it's all of their slaves, all of their workers, all the wives and husbands that are married in. It's a large group of people. This is caravans of people moving, and Lot is in the same boat. Lot also has children and wives and slaves and butlers and maids and people that clean silver. All this stuff traveled together. There was a lot of people to have in one field. And so Abraham's like, listen, God gave us all this land. If you go south, I'll go north. You go north, I'll go south. East, west, vice versa. We'll split up. We'll both prosper on our own. So Lot went to this populated cities of Sodom and Gomorrah and pitched his camp just outside of Sodom. Abraham went the opposite direction to a lonely field in the middle of the woods and built his. There we go, some backstory. Abraham prays to God and asks for a son and is told his wife Sarah will bear one within the year. I'm paraphrasing here to move along to the point. And then God has an introspective moment in Genesis 18:17. It's very interesting because in 18:17, God thinks out loud to himself. And the author of Genesis thought this was a good thing to write down. This contemplative deity thinks, shall I hide from Abraham what I'm about to do? Since Abraham is to become a great and populous nation, and all the nations of the earth are to bless themselves to him. This is where Abraham becomes a true prophet of the Hebrew Bible, God. And I keep saying the Hebrew Bible, God, because the Old Testament is kind of derogatory. Hebrew Bible is what is considered in many circles because it was written in Hebrew. It's not a reference to Judaism. It is a reference to the language that it was originally written in. Done. So, this is where Abraham becomes a true prophet because God reveals to him what he is going to do in the future. God's plans for Sodom and Gomorrah, their destruction because of the wickedness, God has heard an outcry from the city. The outcry has reached him. Well, Abraham is not comfortable with God's decision to destroy an entire Twin City area because of a few bad apples. And asks God, how many good men living within the cities would it take to stop the destruction? He works the Lord from 50 men down to 40, then 20, and finally gets God to agree that if there are just 10 good men within the two communities, then all those living in the towns will be saved. After striking the deal with God, God sends 2 angels to check the cities and measure their sin. Now, I'd like to point out that the sin being measured is that of hospitality and compassion to those in need. This is all prior to the laws of Moses. Okay? But before the angels can get into the city of Sodom, Lot, a relative of Abraham, stops the 2 just outside the city walls and all but begs them to come to his tent, share his food, share his drink, get their feet washed. This is all Genesis 19:2. He asks them to spend the night, and the angels accept. It is implied that Lot begs the angels to come to his tent because he's worried about them showing up in a dangerous city at night. It'd be like, I don't know, some young, starry-eyed kid showing up in a LA bus station around 2 in the morning. It's not the safest place to be. And so Lot is trying to help. And there's good reason. Because, where was I? Spend the night, angel said, it is here that everything goes to hell in a handbag. Not just for those living in Lot's house, but Sodom and Gomorrah as well. For the interpretation of these events, and the interpretation of the way these events, oh man, I should have written this down. So everything goes badly, not just for Lot, not just for Sodom and Gomorrah, but pretty much the interpretation of what happened at Sodom and Gomorrah up to present time. See, many would have you believe that the transgression of Sodom and Gomorrah is one of homosexuality, and this is an error. The sin and corruption of the 2 cities is that of not being hospitable. They come to Lot's door. And now I'm quoting directly from Genesis 19:5-8. And they shouted to Lot and said to him, where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us, that we may be intimate with them. So Lot went out to them to the entrance, shut the door behind him, and said, I beg you, my friends, do not commit such a wrong. Look, I have 2 daughters who have not known men. Let me bring them to you, and you may do with them what you please. But do not do anything to these men, since they have come under the protection of my roof. It is pointed out, and I'm going to refer now to this notes within this particular publication, if I can find where it is. Here we go. In the line notes on the side, it says, according to one opinion of the Mishnah, a lack of generosity is characteristic of Sodom and epitomized in the saying, what is mine, what is yours. The gross violation of the conventions of hospitality are let down. Now, what has come to be the interpretation of this event is that the sexualization of same-sex interaction is the sin of Sodom and Gomorrah, perpetrated all the way through the Dark Ages and well into the Vatican II, and this is the way that many people interpret the Bible presently today. What has been discovered is that the real sin of Sodom and Gomorrah is a lack of hospitality. Lot flat out says it, that I have brought these men under the protection of my roof to tear them from my home and rape them, which is not a word that is in the Hebrew Bible, just like there's not a word for marriage and there's not a word for intercourse, is a violation of my hospitality. Take my daughters. Sounds really crass to suggest that he takes his daughters, but in that period of time, daughters and children are the property of the man of the house. He's offering them his property. He's extending the hospitality of his home to the mob outside of his home. It's disturbing, slightly disgusting, but Lot gets his own in the end because his daughters seduce him after they escape with some wine. Anyway, moving on. Lot doesn't have an issue with the crowd's demands because of its sexual nature. Far from it. He's willing to give him his virgin daughters. He has a problem with them breaking the protection of the hospitality of his home. In their extreme rudeness, they have violated the customs recognized across the land. Repeatedly throughout the previous chapters, we are given examples of the proper way to greet and interact with strangers. Melchizedek greets Abraham and offers him food and blessings. The king of Sodom meets Abraham and offers him land and cattle. It can even be said that God denies Adam and Eve hospitality because they disobeyed the rules of the house in the Garden of Eden. The extension of food, drink, washing, and shelter to those traveling and in need is a repeated theme throughout the Hebrew Bible. The sin of Sodom and Gomorrah is that of blatant rudeness. They come as a mob and demand the angels, who they think are men, to come out so they may be used by the crowd for its own pleasure. This is not a loving encounter or mutual consent act. This is what we would now refer to as rape. The implication that it is same-sex rape is not the problem. It is the rape and denial of the rule of hospitality that condemns the twin cities. Whew. While that is a heavy mouthful, I even wrote it down. It is pertinent because we are now on the cusp of a major change in our country. A change we've already seen take place in our state, the freedom to marry the partner of your choice. Marriage is now a joining of two people of mutual consent committing to the compassionate elevation of their other till death or divorce do they part. This change in the dynamic of our marriage ceremonies is creating a dangerous catch within our city, Mormons, ordinances for protection of its citizens. When you drive into Norman and read the Welcome to Norman sign on Main Street, you'll discover that we are striving to be an inclusive community. That inclusion does not presently protect sexual persuasion, transgender, and sexual identity expression. This is evident because while it is possible to be married to the partner of your choice, depending on your job, it may not be possible to display your wedding picture on your desk at said job. It may be possible to marry who you want, but your landlord does not have to recognize your marriage as a family unit and can raise your rent for multiple occupants, or even evict that couple because they are gay. Our community has reached out to the LGBT community over the past year. Our community, and I mean our congregational community, over the past year has been instrumental in creating a group called the Norman United. Norman United is dedicated to changing the city's discrimination ordinance so that it reflects protections for sexual orientation, transgender, and sexual expression. The idea of the group is to impart equality across the board for all people within our town. This ordinance change does not set aside special protection for the LGBTQ community within its borders. but simply enfolds them into the same protections we as straight people take for granted. Namely, protection of our sex, that is, whether you are male or female. Family, that it depends on how big or small the size is, whether or not you have stepchildren, whether or not you have spouses, whether or not you have uncles, aunts, and grandparents living within your community. Religion, you can do whatever religion you want, still maintain your job, and maintain your residence. Race, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. And color, which I think is a funny addition, because we already have race. While it is possible in a right-to-work state to be fired for many reasons, who you date and marry should be one of them. While it is possible to be evicted from your home for failure to uphold your lease agreement, it should not be possible because of the love in your life. I would like to encourage our congregational members to bring their stories of discrimination at the hands of their employers and landlords to the Norman United meeting on February 3rd at 7:30, so that those stories can be collected and used in the effort to change our city ordinance. I'm going to stop here and quit reading and explain really quickly. In October of this year, our congregation filmed a movie that is a documentary about a young man who committed suicide in Norman. He was a young gay man, and he committed suicide reportedly because of some hate speech that came out of a city council meeting 4 years ago. We showed that movie in our congregation to have a discussion in Norman about how we treat the LGBTQ community within our borders and what we can do as a community to better reach out and support the LGBTQ community. We invited other faith-based groups. That would include pastors and ministers from UCC, from the both Baker groups, from the McCormick Methodist. Is it McCormick Methodist? Is that right? McFarland Methodist. There we go. First United Methodist, as well as St. Joseph's and St. Anthony's, and it goes on and on. St. Stephen's. Sorry, St. Anthony's is a hospital. So we had a wide variety of different people attend and participate, as well as we invited a wide variety of different social action groups, the PFLAG group, the Moms group, the Welcoming Community group, we had the head counselor for Norman's school district come. We also had a wide variety. We had the woman who happens to teach LGBTQ, Candy from OU. She teaches the staff and students how to properly use language that is inclusive in their classrooms. All these people came together to watch this film. We watched the film. At the end of the film, we had a discussion about what we can do to make Norman a more equitable community for the LGBTQ within our borders. And the unanimous decision across the board was that we need to change the city ordinance to reflect inclusion of the LGBTQ community. That has been meetings since then, meetings that I've been involved in, oddly enough, as the leader of the group. We can talk about that later. And I don't have any problems being the leader of the group, but we've now come to a point in our group discussions in which we're going to go public with the city council, with the stories that we're collecting to show how our community doesn't include the LGBTQ within its borders, so that we can get that ordinance changed, so that we can become an entirely inclusive community. So at the podium today, I bring all this up, mostly because I had a meeting with a city council member who was in charge of bringing these agendas to the city council and making a vote this week. Having that conversation with her, she's going to bring Norman United's plea to the city council and find out how we can get this voted on and passed. Because we have that meeting, Norman United is going to continue to push forward. You, as a congregation of West Point Unitarian Universalists, are going to have people who are going to question you about this decision, because it is going to become apparent that that meets here within our church's walls, and that we were the instigator and the platform to start this. That we are, as a community, trying to reach out and become inclusive. Okay, not only has Norman United contacted the City Council and asked how this can be changed in the foreseeable future, but it is working with a variety of social and faith-based groups to actively try to bring about a more hospitable community for everyone who lives in Norman. All of this ties into our faith-based community here. We have, over the last 6 months, worked to become a UUA welcoming community. This involves documenting and relating the efforts of our congregation to open our doors and lives to the LGBTQ people in our midst. And this effort, Melissa, will you please raise your hand? the head chair of our social justice community, has put a short questionnaire on the back of today's order of service. If you please look at the back of your order of service, you'll see the questionnaire. We ask that you please fill out the questions to the best of your ability and leave it on the back table so that they may be collected and documented. Our goal as a community is to welcome all who walk through our doors. We are considerate of others in both our language and our actions. We are affirming of others inside and outside of our community, not only in their spiritual beliefs, but also in their lifestyle choices or genetic disposition. We are strongest when we are united. See, I got back to the title of the United under the auspices of hospitality. Our desire to interact equally towards everyone we meet. This equality is not of uniform disdain and intolerance, but of just and compassionate interaction. Hospitality is the unity born through compassionate regard for strangers. God would save all of Sodom and Gomorrah for the value of 10 good men. We are a congregation composed of far more than 10 good people. We can be the salvation of our community, the voices that cry out for hospitable inclusion of everyone. Because everyone deserves sanctuary under the roof of Norman, under the roof of West Wind Unitarian Universalist congregation, and under the roof of our individual souls. Thank you for listening. That's the end of that. If you'll now turn to your hymnal supplement, page 2, Put Our Heart in the Holy Place. Words you'll find at the bottom of our order of service today. May truth bless us, joy sustain